Football has always been driven by money, but now it's being bought in a way we've never seen before. In recent years, Saudi Arabia has turned its national league into a limitless market, offering massive contracts to any player willing to play there. Cristiano Ronaldo, Neymar, Benzema, Mané, Kanté, Firmino, Mahrez, Henderson. The list keeps growing. But Saudi Arabia isn't just looking for a stronger league. They want to rewrite the rules of world football. They want to weaken Europe and take control of the most popular sport on the planet. And the worst part? This isn't just a sporting whim. This move is part of a carefully calculated plan. A plan of power, influence, and global dominance. And this strategy has been in motion for far longer than you think. In December 2022, Cristiano Ronaldo became the first big name to accept playing in Saudi Arabia. The contract, 200 million euros per year, an absurd amount. One that no other club on the planet could offer. But Cristiano Ronaldo wasn't signed just to play football. He was the perfect poster boy. The first piece of a plan that would put the spotlight on the Saudi Pro League and attract other players. Many criticized his choice, calling him a mercenary, saying he was just chasing one last big contract before retirement. But Ronaldo saw something that few did at the time. The Saudi League was just getting started. The superstar even began publicly defending the growth of Saudi football. In an interview, he claimed that the Saudi Pro League was already better than the French league.
The level right now, to be honest, I think the Saudi League is not worse than French league, to be in my opinion. In French league, I think you have 2-3 teams with a good level.
You said the Saudi League was better than Ligue 1.
The French league?
Yeah.
Easy.
You still maintain?
Of course.
Many laughed at that statement. But was he really that wrong? If nobody talked about Saudi football before, now it was in the media every single day. From the moment he arrived, a domino effect began. Neymar signed for Al Hilal, Benzema moved to Al Ittihad, and while Saudi football was spending without limits, European clubs lost players without being able to compete financially. But did Cristiano Ronaldo truly understand what he was getting into? Did he realize that Saudi Arabia's intentions go far beyond football? That behind these billions, there's a much bigger and much darker plan. To understand what's happening, we need to understand how this country works. Saudi Arabia has always been dependent on oil. For decades, it was their only source of wealth, but the world has changed. The demand for oil is declining. With the rise of renewable energy and growing pressure to reduce pollution, the future of oil is uncertain. Mohammed bin Salman, the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia, knows this. And to ensure the country remains a global power, he created the Vision 2030 plan. The goal? To turn Saudi Arabia into a hub for tourism, entertainment, and business. And football is the perfect weapon for that. The idea isn't just to strengthen the Saudi League, it's to change the world's perception of Saudi Arabia. To make people talk about the country because of sport, not because of controversies over human rights, censorship, and political repression. This strategy has a name: sports washing.
Well, if sport washing gonna increase my GDP by 1%, and then I will continue doing sport washing.
Using sport to clean up an image isn't new. Authoritarian regimes have done it before. Nazi Germany, Argentina in the 70s, Russia in 2018. Now, Saudi Arabia is playing the same game, but with billions of dollars on the pitch. The most worrying part of this story isn't just the amount of money being invested. But where that money comes from, we're not talking about a group of billionaire businessmen or private investors. The money financing this transformation of world football comes directly from the Saudi Arabian government. But not just any government. Saudi Arabia is an absolute theocratic monarchy, where all power is concentrated in the hands of the royal family. Since its founding, the country has always been ruled by the Al Saud dynasty, which solidified its dominance in the 1930s with the support of Wahhabism, an ultra-conservative branch of Islam. From that moment on, the Al Saud family became absolute monarchs, imposing strict laws based on Sharia. For decades, the Saudi government controlled every aspect of people's lives, from dress codes to gender segregation rules. Women had very few rights, and religious laws were enforced with severe restrictions. But despite these limitations, the monarchy remained firmly in power thanks to one crucial factor: oil. The wealth generated by this resource allowed Saudi Arabia to establish itself as an economic and political powerhouse, maintaining stability even in the face of international criticism. Unlike democratic countries, where financial decisions go through public debate and regulations, in Saudi Arabia, resources are managed centrally by the royal family, without any need to answer to the population. And this is the government that's injecting billions into football, using the Public Investment Fund, PIF, a state-owned entity managing over $700 billion, which, in practice, is just an extension of the monarchy's decisions. The PIF took control of Saudi Arabia's four biggest clubs: Al Nasser, Al Hilal, Al Ittihad, and Al Ahly, and started pouring money into them to turn them into global powerhouses. While European clubs have to balance their finances and follow financial fair play rules, Saudi clubs can spend without limits because they don't need to generate profit. The immediate impact: 700 million euros offered to Mbappé for just one season at Al Hilal. Cristiano Ronaldo signed for 200 million euros per year, becoming the highest-paid athlete in the world. Neymar secured a 320 million euro deal for 2 years. Benzema, Mané, Kanté, Mahrez, and Firmino all signed without their previous clubs even being able to compete financially. What once seemed like a retirement league for aging stars is now directly impacting Europe's biggest leagues. If European football used to be the only global center of the sport, it now faces a real threat. Liverpool lost two key midfielders, Henderson and Fabinho, because they couldn't match the Saudi wages. Manchester City saw Mahrez leave overnight. Paris Saint-Germain lost Neymar. And with this sudden shift, big questions are emerging. Where is all this money coming from? Can the Saudi Pro League really become one of the strongest leagues in the world? Is European football about to lose its dominance? China tried the same strategy, bringing in top stars and injecting billions. But in the end, stadiums emptied, clubs collapsed, and players left. Will Saudi Arabia face the same fate? Unlike China, which eventually imposed spending limits to prevent financial disaster, Saudi Arabia has a government willing to fund this project at any cost. In the long run, this could go one of two ways. Either the Saudi Pro League truly establishes itself as a relevant league, or everything collapses, just like it did in China. If Saudi Arabia keeps signing star players and inflating the market, football could enter a new era. The biggest challenge for the Saudis is that no league becomes a global powerhouse overnight. European football took decades to build its prestige, and it isn't just about the players. It thrives on history, rivalries, and the passion of the fans. The problem is that Saudi money could speed up this transformation. If European clubs can't hold on to their top players, the overall quality of the major leagues could drop. which would directly impact the Champions League and other prestigious tournaments. But the Saudi project isn't just about strengthening their own league. If the Saudi Pro League fails to reach the top, there's another strategy already in motion: buying European clubs directly. This strategy of acquiring clubs didn't start with Saudi Arabia. Other Gulf nations have already used it to gain influence in world football. In 2008, Manchester City was bought by the City Football Group, controlled by the Abu Dhabi government. With massive investments, the club went from a mid-table Premier League side to one of the most powerful teams in the world, dominating English football and winning the Champions League. In 2011, Paris Saint-Germain was acquired by Qatar Sports Investments, a state-owned Qatari fund. Since then, PSG has become one of the richest clubs on the planet, spending fortunes to bring in Neymar, Mbappé, and Messi. Both clubs were transformed by petrodollars and completely changed the hierarchy of European football. Then, in 2021, it was Saudi Arabia's turn to make its move. Newcastle United, an English club with over a century of history, was bought by Saudi Arabia's public investment fund, PIF, for $391 million. Up until then, Newcastle was a historically big club, but had spent decades without major success, often battling against relegation in the Premier League. But in less than 2 years, everything changed. With massive investment, Newcastle went from a mid-table team to competing for a Champions League spot. Unlike Abu Dhabi and Qatar, which bought already established and financially strong clubs, Saudi Arabia took a different approach. They wanted to see how far unlimited money could take a struggling club, and it worked. If this strategy has worked before, what's stopping them from doing the same with other clubs? Absolutely nothing. If the Saudis continue down this path, they won't even need to make their league the strongest in the world. All they have to do is take control of the biggest clubs in Europe. And at that point, this won't be a battle between continents anymore. It will be one single game, with them setting the rules. And what will happen to the football we love? Saudi Arabia's aggressive entry into football could lead to 3 possible outcomes. The first scenario is that the Saudi League becomes a competitive and sustainable powerhouse. If investments continue, the Saudi Pro League could grow and attract not only veteran players, but also young talents. To achieve this, it would need to improve infrastructure, expand its fan base, and build a culture of competitive football. This is Saudi Arabia's ultimate goal: to create a league that, in the future, won't need to pay absurd wages to attract players, but will instead become a legitimate option for elite footballers. The second possibility is that the project collapses, just like it did in China. For years, China spent billions signing stars like Oscar, Hulk, and Tevez. But poor infrastructure and a lack of fan interest caused the entire project to fall apart. If the Saudi Pro League fails to engage supporters and generate its own revenue, the government might realize that the returns aren't worth it and cut investments, leading to a mass exodus of players and the league's decline. The third and most concerning outcome is that Saudi Arabia dominates football in a different way. If the Saudi League doesn't become a global powerhouse, the country can simply buy more European clubs and control world football from within. This strategy is already underway. Newcastle was just the first step. This means that, regardless of whether the Saudi Pro League succeeds or fails, Saudi money will continue shaping the future of football. Football was once dominated by clubs and private investors, but now entire governments are stepping into the game. Qatar, the UAE, and Saudi Arabia have already shown they are willing to reshape the sport at any cost. If European football doesn't find a way to protect itself from this external influence, it could lose part of its identity. Financial fair play is no longer enough to stop this type of investment, and the next few years will decide whether football becomes a sport completely controlled by state-backed wealth, or if the tradition of Europe's great leagues will be enough to maintain some balance. What do you think? Is there still room for tradition in football, or has money already decided the future of the sport? Leave your opinion in the comments.